Hey everyone, how's it going? What's up? How is your Monday? Mine isn't too terribly bad. Yesterday, I was looking through Netflix and I found this video that I first heard of on AVGN, which stands for Angry Video Game Nerd. He did a little review of this movie, and ever since I've been wanting to watch it. The name of the movie, or documentary I guess is more appropriate, is Atari Game Over. And it talks about the rise of the Atari 2600 in 1977. I believe it was September of 77. And its fall in 1983 with what everybody claims to be the worst video game ever, aka E.T. And they talked to Warshaw, who is the one that created E.T. in 5 weeks, which is insane since they normally take a couple years to produce video games. And they talk about the back history of course, Atari, and get all set up to go to the landfill to try to find the place where the Atari games was buried, which I find that very interesting because I've been a gamer for over 30 years, and this console they're talking about came out a year before I was born in 77, so that I find interesting. I also found interesting when I looked it up that the Atari 2600 was officially retired in 92. And so that just proves that even though there was a video game crash of 83, that video games that really didn't go anywhere, and that even though Nintendo is single-handedly credited as the one that came in like the Phoenix and resurrected video games, people still was playing Atari. I mean, sure, the market was filled with games, and there was, a lot of dumps, and Atari may have went under, and all this good stuff, bad stuff for them, but it talks about them going under. Of course, I find it interesting that Xbox is the ones that decided to do this video, or help produce this video, which I find it interesting, taking a look back to the past and looking over the last 30 years of video games, because before Atari 2600 there was other Atari things like Atari Pong and the Odyssey and some other simple consoles that I think had games built in or something, or it wasn't just, so I found that interesting. And then Atari 2600 comes along and makes, coin operated games, hot stuff. And that's kind of cool. And then of course they have the Atari 5200 that came out, and Atari tried several times to come back with the like I said, 5200, the Jaguar, the Jaguar CD. I think Neptune was supposed to be Jaguar, and they kept trying to come back, and then they finally lost, I think properly, due to the fact that Nintendo had such a strong grasp and was able to do what they did. And it was until the late 80s, I think it was late 80s, when Sega came out with the Master System, and then later Genesis, and then Nintendo and Sega had the rivalry until PlayStation came out, which led to the PS2, PS3, now PS4. Then, of course, Xbox came out, I think, in 2000, 2001, leading to the Xbox 360, and now the Xbox One. And, of course, Nintendo went from Nintendo to Super Nintendo to the N64 to the GameCube. to the Wii U, and who knows what the next gen of console is going to be. I wonder if PlayStation's going to keep the line going and do PlayStation 5. I wonder if Xbox is going to release the 720, which they thought, a lot of people thought that the 360 would be named the 720. You know what, when Nintendo's next thing going to be. But anyway, I'm getting off the topic. So yeah, they go through and talk about this and interview. There's a lot of interviews with Warsaw and some other people from Atari, and they find where the Atari cartridges was buried, dig them up. I think the Atari cartridges was only like 10%, and it was just a massive warehouse dump. And there was a lot of Atari stuff down there that wasn't just, E.T. like they had originally claimed. And I sort of remember renting Atari, not Atari, but I had an Atari 2600. It was my first console. And I sort of remember renting E.T. for a weekend, or borrowing it from a friend or something. I forget how that works. Somebody had E.T. or I rented it. I played it. Couldn't figure it out. I don't think, because I was really young. I mean, see, 81. I was 3. So yeah, it may have been a little bit more advanced for a 3-4-year-old, depending on when I played this. And I remember the Atari having some really good games, and really amazed that the Sega was it Sega Genesis? The Sega being able to be compatible, where you could plug in the controllers into the Atari 2600, and being able to do it that way. That was fascinating at the time. I mean, Nintendo pretty much had to officially license everything they did. They had lockout chips. I mean, Nintendo was really doing their best to own the industry. And of course, we see how that worked out for Nintendo, because they pretty much don't do everybody, stuff is interchangeable. But Nintendo definitely had to change the way they did things. And it was still around. I think Nintendo came out in 85, 84. So they've been around for 20, 30 years. So that's kind of cool. The video was really well done. I liked it a lot. And let's see. The only thing is Nintendo was so dominant, and Atari pretty much went away. I mean, they became a game developer, and every once in a while you can find Atari games re-released on like PlayStation or something, and I have a few of those that were the re-release of Atari games. And I even have one of those that have the Atari games built into it. I can't remember if it's 20 or 50 games built into it, and you just have the joystick and you play it. Because I like retro games. That's one thing I do love is playing some Atari. Sure, you have to use a lot of imagination, but I think that's what makes it fun. Even when Nintendo, you look at Nintendo and see the original Mario Brothers, and then you go to Mario Brothers 2 and then Mario Brothers 3, you see an evolution of those games on the same console. And it's just amazing. They still didn't look as great as games today, but I think old games where You have to use your imagination, be able to make out the games and the sound effects they have for the system not statistics, but what the systems was able to do made those games really freaking awesome. And I love the modern day consoles, but I don't know, I can easily go back to one of the old games and play that for hours and hours on end. And sure, they're annoying, especially with the load times with the CD-based games, which eventually led to DVD-based games, which the load time didn't really get much better, because the joke between me and my friend was always now loading the loading screen, and it just took forever and ever. I mean, the load time was never as bad as the Commodore 64, which a friend of mine had, but the load times were just ridiculous. It's like, oh my god. And you hope that you gotta play a while before the load screens actually kicked in again. And I like it. I've always been a fan of Final Fantasy, so that was one thing that I could always fall back on. And of course, till recently, where the Final Fantasy games have gotten really, really, really different, and they feel the same, but they don't feel the same as the original Final Fantasies. I don't know, it seems like the newer Final Fantasies are a lot less fun. They look a lot better, but they're really not fun. And that's the one thing I remember about Atari, is that even the really difficult games had just something you liked. Even if it was just a little, you just wanted to play it and keep playing it because it was fun and you enjoyed it. Yeah. And I was amazed that a lot of those games that they found in the landfill, and I know I'm jumping around, this wasn't really well thought out. This is just me doing just whatever. And it was amazing that those games came out, and maybe if you cleaned off a little dirt or sand, because it was found in El Grado, Mexico, if you clean them up, they probably still go into a console, and maybe you had to change a case on a couple of them, but you could stick them in an Atari 2600, and you possibly could still play. I mean, it's just amazing. And I'm actually interested at the progression, because you started out with these cartridges, or with Atari it was cassettes, but you start out with these that had limited room for you to put games on, and then they went to CDs, which doubled what you could do on a disc and all this. And then from the CD they went to DVD, which again, was able to put more stuff on the games. And now, the games, I don't know if the Xbox is officially Blu-ray, but Blu-ray, which doubled, tripled the space. I don't know exactly how much you can actually put on a Blu-ray, but the high definition disc, the Blu-ray, doubling, tripling it again. I mean, the technology has definitely gotten a lot better, and it's a lot of fun to play the new games. I like playing the new games. I have an Xbox One. I want to get a PlayStation 4 eventually. because I know there's going to be games on there. Hopefully Jack and Dexter and Ratchet and Clank makes it to the PS4. Gran Turismo, maybe they'll come out with a new one of those. Those are games I'm interested in seeing on there. But I still like the old games. They, for some reason, hold a very special place in my heart. Maybe because it's where I started from. And they may not, like I said, may not look great, may not sound great, but they're so much fun to play. At least most of them. I mean, sure, the movie licensed ones by LJN may have been horrific and not that great. And there were games that suffered from control things, and Simon's Quest 2 had that day to night thing that paused the game right in the middle of, something important he was trying to do, and it was pretty cryptic and, really difficult, but it was just fun. And as I think we go more and more into, I don't know where we get to virtual reality, because the Virtual Boy, I remember seeing that at Toys R Us, and boy, that game gave me a headache just playing it at Toys R Us, and I didn't want it. I can honestly say that was one of Nintendo's creations that I didn't go into, and I didn't go into the Game Boy Minis and everything. So I really didn't feel like it was worth it. Sure, I mean, they shrunk the things down, and of course I did eventually buy a PlayStation Slim, a PlayStation 2 Slim, but that was because I had gone through so many of the original PlayStation 2s that, it just, I got tired of fixing them, and I went to a Slim, and I think I went through a couple of Slims. I went through 2 Xboxes. Of course, they didn't have the Slim out for that yet. Now they do. So, I think all in all, the progression of video games is awesome. And knowing where they came from to where they are now makes them incredibly cool. And as a person that's been a gamer for 30 plus years, I can't wait to see what comes up next. And as always, I'm going to end this because I'm just rambling now. As always, if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below. If you didn't like this video, give it a thumbs down. Leave a comment down below. Please subscribe, because I want to know how to make my videos better for you, make them more entertaining for you. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.